So I think most people in the community at this point would agree that despite all the issues with Battlefield 2042, it really has taken a step in the right direction over the last probably 2 to 3 months now, and especially with Season 1. And although it is definitely headed in the right direction, there is obviously still a lot of work to be done on the game. So today I wanted to talk about what I think needs to be done to continue this ball rolling and continue getting Battlefield 2042 to where it needs to be. As like I said, there is plenty of stuff they still do need to work on, despite all the positive stuff that they have done in the last few months. Before we get into it, if you guys are new to the channel, then definitely hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. But with that being said, let's get stuck right into it. Now, I've got a bunch of things on the list here, but to me there is one that absolutely stands out, and that's what I wanted to talk about first, which is the lack of a server browser in Battlefield 2042. As for me personally, this is the #1 thing that they need to add in order to make this game feel just a little bit more finished and get it to where we probably all expect it to be for a Battlefield game. Now, pretty much every Battlefield game in the past has had some sort of server browser. It's always worked well, it's always been a pivotal part of Battlefield, and I know for me, having played a lot of Battlefield and a lot of Call of Duty, whenever I was playing Call of Duty, I always missed the fact there was no server browser. It was just you click play and you get into a game, and I've always much preferred actually being able to go through the list and essentially pick and choose the server that I want to be in. And especially in Australia and places around the world that don't have a big population, a server browser is actually really important to simply just be able to find games. Now at the moment it's not been too bad finding games, obviously, because Season 1 has just launched. The game has seen a pretty big resurgence of players, and I'm essentially finding games as soon as I search for them, but over the last few months it hasn't really been that same way. Now, it's been the same for both Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5, but the thing with those games is that people can actually congregate in those servers simply because you can obviously go through the server list and just join the server that has the most players in it. Now, that for me essentially saved Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5, because once they get towards the end of their lifespan, there's obviously always going to be a lot less players. Even with a really good game like Battlefield 1, that just happens eventually, that, you know, people start playing other games and stuff. So having a server browser in those games really did save them towards the end of their lifespan. Not sure I really would have ever been able to find games otherwise, but because this game doesn't have that server browser, at least not in All Out Warfare anyway, you just cannot tell what modes and what maps and stuff like that are going to be populated. So if I'm trying to search for a game of Breakthrough, for example, I don't know how many people are playing that. I might try and sit there for 20 minutes trying to find a game of Breakthrough, only to find out that there's apparently no one online. However, if they had a server browser, I would simply be able to tell how many people are playing that mode straight away. So for me, this is the absolute biggest issue with this game right now. Like I said, at this exact moment, it really isn't that bad just because Season 1 has launched, but I know in a month or two, players will start to drop off again. That's just how it goes. And the fact that we're in the middle of our season, it's not like the game is done or anything like that, and I'm already having this issue, that is a really, really big problem for the game. In most populated places like in America or most places in Europe, it's not going to be that big of an issue, and that's the part that worries me. The DICE just won't see the problem, but for any place like Australia that just has a small population, this is genuinely going to be game breaking eventually, because there will come a time when I simply will not be able to find games. So I do hope that this is something they look into. The tech is already there in the game. It's in Portal. They literally have a server browser in Portal, so it surely can't be hard to just put that same tech into All Out Warfare. But yeah, I won't lie, I'm definitely a little bit nervous that this is essentially never going to happen. Now, something else that I think is really important that is currently just not that intuitive is the squadding up system in Battlefield 2042. Now, I think getting into a squad of 4 works fine enough. There's obviously issues with the lack of persistent servers that sometimes you have to like back out of games and re-squad up essentially. Some people will get left in games and stuff. It's kind of a little bit dodgy at the moment, but the main issue for me personally is the fact that there is still only 4-man squads. They mentioned before the game came out that you would be able to join into bigger groups of people. So for example, you could get in a squad of say 15 people, and then obviously there are only 4-man squads, so that would split you up in the game into different groups of 4. So for example, 15 players all partied up together, you would have 3 squads of 4 and 1 of 3, and it would all essentially keep you all in the same team, in the same group, but then you would be split up into squads. Now that has not happened. I'm not sure why they said that and then they haven't done it. Whether they're planning on doing that in the future, I'm really not too sure, but I do think they really need to improve that area of the game. This is a game that has always been built on the community, trying to get people to play together and play the objective and have fun. And when you can't play with big groups of players, that does cause it to be a little bit of an issue. And for a lot of people who maybe only want to play with their friends, that can actually be a pretty, drastic issue that they just don't even want to play the game anymore. anymore. So that's something else I think really needs improving, is just essentially the squad system. I don't mean the squad system in terms of in-game, the 4-man squads. I think that works as it should be, but essentially just getting into a squad and getting bigger squads together, I definitely think that needs to be improved. Now, next on the list, we have one that is probably, to most people, the most important thing, and this is the specialist changes that they've obviously been talking about over the last couple of months. Now, I say they've been talking about it, they really haven't been talking about it. They mentioned they were going to give us some info on what they were doing, and then we haven't really heard anything. We know they are planning on changing them somehow, but I think we really need to hear about what that could potentially be, similar to what they did with the maps, where they sort of showed us the initial changes they were thinking of, then we gave them feedback, and then they sort of take that on board and come back and show us what they've done once they've taken our feedback on board. And I really think they need to do that with the specialists, because they mentioned they don't want to tell us one thing and then end up not doing it, but they've literally done that with the maps and it worked out fine in my opinion. I think they're much better off just getting our feedback, giving us an initial idea of what they, what they're thinking of doing, and then either we're going to like it and say, yep, go ahead with it, or we're not going to like it and give them feedback, and then that's going to help them anyway. So I think that's the next thing that we really need to hear about. Obviously, there's going to be more, important news during Season 1. There will be bigger updates. There will be, we're getting the kaleidoscope changes. There's going to be stuff that they're talking about during Season 1, but I really do think we need to hear about those specialists, because I know to a lot of people, that is still one of the main issues with this game, is it just doesn't really feel like Battlefield in that way. And with all the positive steps they've taken with this season, I think changing the specialist system some way to make it feel a bit, closer to Battlefield, that would definitely kind of double down on the fact that they are trying to do what the community wants. So as for the actual changes, I don't really care if we don't get them for 3 months. I don't care how long it takes to get it right, but I do think we need to start hearing about that, because they said that back in, I think it was like Feb or March now, that we were going to hear what they're talking about, and it is now the middle of June, and we still haven't heard a single thing. So that is definitely up there on the priority list for me. Now, something else they have already mentioned, and they've already partly done this, is that I think they need to add the portal weapons and the maps into All Out Warfare permanently. As of right now, they do have the Exodus Conquest mode, which is essentially Conquest, but with 4 of the maps from Portal, essentially all of the maps except for the Battlefield 1942 maps, and it has worked really well. I think those maps suit the game. They're obviously proven maps. There's a reason they put them in the game, because they are some of the most loved maps in the whole Battlefield franchise. And the other thing with it too is that they don't really ruin the lore of the game, in my opinion. They are just locations. They don't feel like we're fighting in World War II, for example. I think that's why they left the 1942 maps out. It doesn't feel like we're fighting in a different era. It just feels like we're fighting on a new map that still suits the 2042 timeline, I guess. So I think those have worked really well, and I hope they add that permanently. It actually says on the tile for the game mode that it is a limited time mode. I thought it was permanent, but apparently it isn't. So I think they need to make that permanent. It shouldn't even be called Exodus Conquest. It should literally just be called Conquest. Adding those into the permanent rotation of the main game mode itself would be a really positive change, in my opinion. And also doing the same for Breakthrough, because I think those maps, they've been proven that they're loved. They suit the game. It also adds 4 new maps. Even if they were just like half decent maps, it's still 4 extra maps that we're getting. So I definitely think they need to be made permanent. And then as for the weapons, they have touched on that they're going to be sort of putting some of those portal weapons into the game. We haven't really heard anything since then, so I kind of just wanted to double down on that they really need to start trying to work that out, because currently we have, I believe, 24 weapons in the game, and if they could add, for example, another 26, I think they've got like 70 odd already in Portal. So if they added 26 of those, we would more than double our weapon count, and we would have 50 weapons in the game. So I think that's just such an easy win for them. They're already in the game, just port them over into the All Out Warfare section. They may need a bit of balancing and stuff like that, that's fair enough, but I think that would be a huge change for the game, and actually having 4 new maps and 20 plus new weapons on top of all the changes they've made in Season 1, that would be a huge win for the player base. And again, they're easy wins. They don't have to actually make 20 plus new weapons. They just have to move them from one mode to the next. So that's a very easy win for me, and I hope that they do start to work on putting that into the game. Now, the last thing that I've got here on my list, which is not even to do with right now, but this is more for the future, is that I really hope that they continue supporting the game. Now, we've seen it with Battlefield 5, we've seen it with plenty of games in the past. DICE will often get a game to a really good spot and then essentially just cancel it. Battlefield 5 launched so rough, it took them probably a year or more to actually get it to a really decent spot, and then then with the Pacific season and stuff, the community was really coming around to the game and it felt a lot better, and we were all pretty happy with where it was going. And then a few months later, they essentially just cancelled it on us. And honestly, it feels like a bit of a waste of time when that happens, and I really hope that doesn't happen with this game. 2042, despite its really rough launch, it has so much potential. It has a really good setting. It's monetized well with the battle pass and the skins and all that kind of thing, so they can continue to make money on it. And although it has obviously launched very rough, I do think that the gunplay and the movement and all that kind of thing is actually really solid. I think the gameplay of Battlefield 2042 is actually in a good spot now, and so if they just put out these 4 seasons, or the next 3 seasons, and then to them they've fulfilled their obligations and they just cancel it, to me that is a complete waste of time. You are not achieving anything by doing that, because you are just going to once again anger the community. We're all going to be on board with this game if it turns out to be what we think it can be. You will have somewhat won our trust back, and then to just cancel it and say, yep, we're just working on another one, to me that genuinely just feels completely pointless. And it feels like if they're going to do that, honestly just cancel the game right now and just move everyone on to the next game. It just feels completely pointless to semi-fix a game and get it to a decent enough spot, and then just announce, well, we're done with this game. So for me, that's one of the biggest things that I'm worried about. They're just going to put out the 4 seasons and then they're just going to move on. Give us a genuine live service. Give us 2, 3, 4 more years of this game, because it has absolutely mad potential. And like I said, it is monetized well. They can actually pump out skins and actually start to make heaps of money from the game, so they can also get what they need from it. I know that EA are mostly just focused on the money side of things when it comes to games, so EA can still get their money and we can still be happy. They can do both things at once. Cancelling the game and moving on to another one that doesn't really win for anyone, they're going to be making less money for that sort of 18-month period where there isn't any current Battlefield game, and we're going to be unhappy because we've just gone through this awesome resurgence of a game and then it just gets deleted essentially. So that is the biggest thing for me, and I'm definitely very nervous about that, but I do hope that they come around to the idea of actually just sticking with the game for 3 to 4 years, which also then gives them more time to work on the next one and they don't have to rush that one out either. That is going to do it for me though, guys. I'm very keen to hear what you guys think, so leave your own thoughts down in the comment section. Like I said, there is plenty of work to be done on this game still, so I am keen to hear your feedback. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like down below. If you're new to the channel, definitely hit that subscribe button, and if you want to support the content that I make here on YouTube, then consider becoming a channel member. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.